And by the way, you are now a TikTok star. Am I correct?
I think Star is overhyping it, but I did go viral on TikTok, and I let's see what happens with the ban. What do you think is going to happen, by the way?
So I am like a little bit anti TikTok only because in my industry, there was a number of like TikTok creators
Yeah.
who I think are legitimate stars who make very short, hyped up videos that are just simply false. Like they are
Mm,
actively bad information and they like push people to do things that are actively detrimental to their like employment, their case, like everything. Um, and it's just like there's this one of like this attorney who's like dancing and like hitting bubbles like that are floating down in the filter, and it's like him telling you like if they want you to sign a performance improvement plan, just tell them no. And it's like you will be fired for that. That is not
right.
good advice at all. And like I just it's
Right.
not a good format for what I do. So I don't love TikTok, but we are on TikTok and your content
Yeah.
is amazing on TikTok. So can we
Oh,
link that down below?
no, I feel like TikTok in general is a very anti-work. We've talked before about the anti-work
Yeah.
Reddit.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it's, I feel like it's, yeah, which is like, I find it amusing as an observer, right? Like, I'm like, this is funny. But like, if you're actually taking advice from any of these forums, like, you're going to be screwed. Like, I don't, yeah. So I don't, I do question like whenever I see information on TikTok, I'm like, okay, where's the source? So in my TikToks, I try to cite as much as I can, like news outlets, for as long as news outlets will still exist. Because I honestly feel like news outlets will exist, but like journalism is just like changing, and everyone's going to get their news from
I mean,
YouTube.
MSNBC is gone in the next 12 months, I think.
Totally.
What does
So I
Fox
mean,
News have? A decade when the viewership passes on? I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
no, it's true. And like people just want at the end of the day to be entertained. So I think
Yeah.
that's in part why like they want this like escapism. They want the distraction from their if they have like a miserable job, right? Or they were just put
Yeah.
on a PIP to see that attorney like popping the balloon, maybe it makes them feel like powerful, you know, even though it's like
Maybe.
it's not like they should be more strategic, but there's that like emotional release, I think, that people get
Yeah.
when they're on TikTok, where it's like, oh, it's your like all of our deepest, darkest desires. Maybe not our darkest desires, because it's not like they do they do censor some content, but like they I think people are drawn to that sort of back to authenticity, like what they perceive to be authenticity that like makes them feel good in that moment.
Yeah.
So, but I also like what I like about TikTok is anyone can just go on TikTok and like you use the right hashtags and you can connect with a lot of people. And you know, it's very democratizing, I think, in that way. And it's anonymous, at least for me, because not anonymous like my face is out there, but like my Instagram, it's all my like childhood friends, and I've
Right.
started posting some of my content there, but I'm like, this is so awkward because I'm not even reaching the people that I want to be reaching. It's just like my friend from like the seventh, or like my old
Yeah.
long lost acquaintance from the seventh grade who's like, what the hell is she doing? Whereas on TikTok, it's like, oh, people who actually want to find your content can find it. And um, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've been doing really well there. I don't know what's going to happen, whether the Supreme Court will like like choose the free speech path over the national security concerns. I really don't know, or whether like Trump will step in and delay it somehow. No clue.
I don't know. Either way, though, we're going to link your TikTok down below and all of your other link tree. You also have a storytelling, correct? Is it non-linear love?
Yeah, nonlinear love. So with actually another attorney, he's a divorce lawyer at
Ooh.
Blank Rome, and he had read. So back in June of last year, I had an essay published in the New York Times as Modern Love, and he read it and he reached out to me, and there were so many messages from that story. It took me like 3 or 4 months to get through all of them.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so he was one of them, and we got on the phone, and he was just a really cool guy. And he was like, I like my work, but it can also be awful sometimes because you're seeing the worst sides of two people going through like these really acrimonious disputes.
Yeah.
So um, we also both felt that the influencer content out there was very like prescriptive. So it was all like 5 steps to like avoid these red flags. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, how does everybody fit into all of these lists? Or like how to, I agree some things are universal red flags, but like
Sure.
there are some things that like some people just have different ways of like existing and being. So we wanted to just have a platform that told stories in a non-prescriptive way about unconventional love. So we've started doing that.
I love
And
that.
sort of a counter to all my like crazy dark whistleblower work.
Is it so? My industry is just waking up to the idea of secondary trauma because I've been
Mm,
telling you for years, like, attorneys don't last in my industry, and you've seen it, frankly.
totally.
Um, my protege, who you knew well, she's the general counsel of Sports Illustrated now. Like, she went on to a more peaceful, higher, very high profile position, but she got away from the like litigating
Mm,
hate crimes and sexual assault the way we do. Um, so speaking kind of to what that attorney was saying, like, I was just like, oh, employment law is corrosive. Attorneys don't last. Like, I'm just here because I'm the one who lasted. And then people started to say to me, yeah, it's because 1 out of 7 of us is attempting suicide. And you're just
mm,
like, but why? And then you start to realize because every single day is horrific. Like,
totally.
it's really, you're sitting there and you're getting jaded about sexual assault and these things, and you don't even understand what's happening to you. So
Yeah.
to is it her point? I don't know. The other
Is
attorney's point. It's nice to have. It seems nice to have an outlet. It sounds nice.
no, and I had to take like a year and a half ago, I had to take a mental health break from this work.
Really?
Yeah, I just split from a really like unfortunate business partnership that turned out to
Yeah.
be not so great. And I, you know, there's also sometimes this expectation, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a therapist, but I do
Sure.
have specialized skills. And sometimes people would convince me though that because I was neither of those professionals, I should be doing work for free. And I just had to set a boundary for myself. And I was like, I just cannot do pro bono work unless I am in the place to do it. And I just set very firm boundaries. A lot of people can afford to pay me. So
Yeah.
and like what I'm offering is very specialized. It's not really offered in a lot of other places.
Nope.
So I set that boundary where I was like, number one, I have to get paid to take care of myself
Yeah.
because you can only do this sort of work and like be there for other people who have experienced like significant trauma if you feel really good in yourself. So it's like, I need to go get a facial, like I need to go get a massage or like
Yeah.
I don't know, like what makes me feel good that then recharges my battery to go out and do this sort of work.
Yeah.
And beyond that, just having, different, I've now like diversified my projects. So, they're more like I'm writing this book, which
Yep.
is um actually really fun. Like there are definitely some dark spots in it, but it's like recalling also a lot of like loves and like weird moments and funny moments.
That's
So writing
sweet.
the book and then you know, the Love Stories project with this divorce lawyer. And I will eventually start writing fiction. So like just other creative projects that and I've also realized that it helps. Creativity is such an outlet for anyone who's been through trauma as well. And sometimes when I, like when people like say they're working with someone like you and they feel financially okay, but they still have some sort of desire to channel their trauma into something else, like creativity is such a way to do it. And I think we're all inherently creative. Whether it's like auto fiction, so you're not like blowing the whistle in a formal way, but you're just
Yeah.
sort of like journaling or like writing and fictionalizing it, right? So it's not my
Yeah.
former boss, but it's, some fictionalized boss of my imagination, and I feel like
Yeah.
that can be a really powerful thing for people.
Yeah. Absolutely. People do try the same thing with us. People come at me with like a, how can you take a piece of all this money? You're getting paid so much for what happened to me. And it's like, oh, because I built this machine that got you the money. And if you don't pay into the machine, it won't exist next year. So the next
Totally.
person in your position doesn't get our help. Like it's
Yeah.
not, do you think these like highly educated barely keeping a chain on, like they just gonna sit around unpaid? Like not. They're gonna go do their own thing if I don't pay them. They have to get paid. They're here to help people. Do you think that working with you, right? Like getting your story out there, getting the publicist, the media training that you provide, like that's not cheap. And it shouldn't be. You're one of the best in your niche. Nobody else can really do what you do. Like, who would do it? But like, I think Gloria Allred has a team. Maybe Wigdor has a team, and then there's you. I don't know anyone else. Like, I don't know who else does what you do. So the idea that you will be compensated for building and fine tuning a skill set and a set of relationships that can safeguard a story, control a media narrative, it's just that's ridiculous. That's absurd to me. I don't. It's very
No,
frustrating.
and I also feel like to your point, like these people are not going to also get the best advice and the best counsel, and if they're just like expecting that somebody will do it for them for free. Like
I
you're
know.
not, unless you like you get lucky and like luck upon someone who is either you or I and has a trust fund, but like that's like that's not happening. I've never seen that happen.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. And I see a lot of cases go south because they don't get the right help, they don't get the right guidance.
Yeah.
Let's apply this to the Jay-Z story. I'm very sad
Yeah.
about Jay-Z. I'm a Jay-Z. I am not a
Yeah.
P Diddy fan, but I am a Jay-Z fan.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. I was talking to a reporter at the Wall Street Journal who,
Oh, we get the inside scoop.
yes, and I will not name them, but they basically said you should look into, and I don't know what, because I haven't really looked into it yet, but they said you
Yeah.
should look into Tony Busby. And so again, I have not looked into it. I don't know what there is. Like, I know he's taken on a ton of these P. Diddy cases. And
Yeah.
I do know that there are some, not like, not all victims' rights attorneys are like you, Vince, you're both like a highly competent and can get amazing results for people, and you're like good to people, right? It's not just about the money for you, I don't think.
Sure. That is true.
um like for some people, I do think it can just be about the money, as sort of the counter to
It
what we were talking.
can.
Yeah.
I will say though, like sometimes those people do better work than the bleeding hearts because it
That's
is
fair.
about the result. So like
Totally.
they're not the worst, but they can be very uncaring. Please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
No, I agree. But I think that, like, I've heard stories of people believing they could have gotten more, like back to the $12 million NDA. Like a woman I worked with, she literally screamed into the phone. She was bawling, she was crying. It was like, I don't know, maybe ask them for $300,000. And that's what they went with. And I'm like, shouldn't the attorneys have like maybe done a little bit of research and like, sort of, because they would have made more money for the attorneys too, but like they just sort of did the bare minimum and just offered the amount that she yelled while in crisis on the phone to them. Anyway, so
Quick
I
pause. I know what attorney you're referring to.
yeah,
And it comes up completely separately in the collaborations that's airing on my channel this week with
Mhm.
Marjorie Mesidor, who was
Yeah.
at the firm that handled the first P. Diddy case. It came up completely, like the whole country is kind of waking up to, and I'm not going to name anyone, but that specific attorney and that
Yes.
firm. And it's just
100%.
like, oh God, it's sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so too. And which I think is good because then that only like it will change. I mean, people will always need lawyers, but hopefully
Yeah.
it'll like direct people to people like you and Marjorie who like are, I don't know, like
Yeah. I
you're
hate to
like not
see a
smart.
prominent woman in our industry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It makes me sad. But yes, you're right.
Yeah,
To an extent.
I take your point, but I also think that if there are enough people who have the same exact experiences of like, well, why didn't you fight for me a little bit more, like when this person could have, and it wasn't a situation where
Yeah.
this was the most that they were going to get. Anyway, so I have not looked into Tony Busby. But I do think that, I don't know. I would be curious to hear your thoughts about this because I believe like my default is to believe women. Definitely
Yes.
people can make things up, but I think the vast majority of women don't just want to go through this to get a payday. Like it's pretty excruciating. So I believe women, but I also read that, this happened when she was 13 and now there are like inconsistencies in like her account, just in, like basically I think it was her dad. She said her dad had picked her up from a gas station after the party, and her dad says he doesn't remember that. And there were people she stated who were at the party who apparently were touring. And I don't know, it could just be a way to discredit her story, and her memory may have been like spotty because it was such a long time ago. At the same time, I don't I don't know.
Yeah.
It's with this. Oops,
Oh,
I'm
I
back.
lost you. Are we back?
I'm back. Yes.
Okay. You were just saying I don't know.
Yeah, that's like I really don't know what to make of it. What do you think?
So first and foremost, the human brain after trauma, I've learned the hard way, it scrambles the memory. Like
Yeah.
there's no plaintiff who's been through sexual assault, rape, ever, who has their story perfect. That's just not how human beings work. And this is true for 13-year-olds, and it's true for people who make 6 million a year as professional communicators. There's no human being with this biomatrix meat brain that we have that will recount a traumatic story accurately, ever, ever. It just doesn't happen. We don't
No.
even recount pleasant stories from yesterday accurately. Like it's just not something humans are great at. Memory is not what we think it is.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. I also default to believing women. I will say it seems, if you remember the video of Jay-Z up by Beyonce's sister in the elevator, and
Yeah.
he just covers and takes it. And I remember watching that video like, oh, that guy gets it. Like yeah, I don't know what he did. I don't want to know what he did, but I
Yeah.
know that's what you do
Yeah.
when a woman attacks you. Oh God,
Right.
you just,
Right.
if she's not trying to murder you, that's the move. And I always was really fond of him after that. Like I was just like, I get
Yeah.
it, man. I don't know what you did, but like, good for you for just taking the
Yeah.
hits and getting out of that elevator. So it makes me sad. I also just don't know. I mean, it seems kind of unlikely to me, but why? What is the question
Right.
these underage women? I I don't know. But listen, I believe women, and we're gonna have to let this play out. It bums me out though.
It
Like, what do
bums
you?
me out too. Yeah, I really usually when I see these sorts of stories, I have a really strong gut feeling of like,
Yeah.
oh, with the Alexander brothers story, which we'll get to,
Yeah.
like that's a gut feeling of like, oh, absolutely, like this is justice being served,
Yeah.
But with Jay-Z, I think I don't know though, then what would be the incentive then of this, say it were fabricated. Why? Why now? Why?
I mean, into your world, which I should not do, if P. Diddy's running defense, Sean Combs, let's give him his name.
Yeah.
It would make sense to elevate stories against other people to get him out of the
Yeah.
public eye to some extent. Um, I mean, that's probably something like if we were doing, and we don't do disaster
Yeah. Yeah.
control,
Yeah.
but if you and I were doing disaster control,
Yes.
this would be a line item 3. Let's people in the same space in trouble. Let's implicate Ashton Kutcher. Let's who's on a cold streak right now. Let's get that in trouble.
Right.
How do we get 50 Cent to talk about this? Right, which I believe he was today on a podcast. Right. So like that would be a defensive maneuver, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be. Because it definitely took the attention away from him all of last week.
Nobody cares about Sean Combs. Sean Combs, like people care. It's obviously of interest, but like he's
Well, I think it's like expected for that. Like people are like, oh, I expect that he's just a scumbag and like more is going to come out about him.
yeah.
But they
He
want
also
novelty of like who were the celebrities at those parties? Like what are the
yeah,
list of names? Sort of like the Epstein log of
exactly. It's become
yeah,
an Epstein thing. But like
yeah,
nobody was like, I love Sean Combs' music. Like I don't think I think they were like, oh yeah, he was at the heart of like some great musicians. And he was kind of like the weird guy who did bad stuff. But like Tupac, Biggie, like it all, like nobody's like NP Diddy.
right. Yeah, yeah. Right. And he's not
You're like,
married to
oh God,
a totally
Jay,
Jake.
like I
Yeah.
don't I don't know. It's a bummer. It just makes me sad. I don't understand this new because it seems like there's an obsession in the wealthy. Like it's almost like Pizzagate was partially true.
Yeah.
Insane, like the idea that like hyper
Yeah.
conservative, like idea that like oh the wealthy are preying upon and human trafficking like young women, and we're all like that's not happening, and then it kind of
Kind of
was.
is.
Like
Yeah.
it kind of was like I don't know. Like, I don't know. It just makes me sad. Next story, sad. What do we got?
Good. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I mean, which one? The Alexander brothers?
Oh, yeah. Let's the real estate. I don't, these guys were not in my circle. Did you know these people?
I didn't. No.
Okay,
I
good.
my boyfriend met them once and said that in a
Oh,
business context and said that even in that context they were not ideal to deal with. So I think that they probably just I don't know, they strike me as the kind of people who just thought that they controlled the universe and that like,
yeah,
and like flew too close to the sun. Um but yeah, I remember with that one because a reporter had called me about it a couple of months ago, first when the civil lawsuits first came out. And he was like, have you worked with any women who have been in touch with the Alexander brothers? And I was like, no, but everyone already, like journalists had so many sources that I was like, I don't actually think I even need to help with this
yeah.
because like people are just coming out of the woodwork. And
Mhm.
but so the civil lawsuits were filed, and my boyfriend asked me, he was like, these stories are coming out, but they're so rich. Like, does it matter? Like, can they just like pay their lawyers to fight these lawsuits from their comfortable houses in wherever they vacation? Like, can they just do that? And I was like, maybe. I mean, I don't know. At the same time, like I found that when like something of this magnitude comes out, like when the can of worms is opened, it just like explodes into something else, like it's just like, it just cycles and snowballs. And I guess that's what happened, because then the last week, the US attorney for the Southern District of New York charged them with sex trafficking. And they were also charged in Miami and New York separately. And so they could be facing 15 years to life in prison.
That's wild. So when we
Yeah.
say human trafficking, like what? So I get human trafficking is like an expanding field, which is a bizarre thing to say, but
Yeah.
like this group out of Texas contacted me in Miami at a conference, at like a trial lawyer summit conference. And they were like, hey, we want you to go after human trafficking cases. And I was like, yeah, I'm an employment attorney. That's not like what I do. We're pretty full. I can't staff enough people for the employment cases as it is to really run the cases the way I want. And they're like, we'll give you, like, we'll fund you. And I was like, how
Oh.
how much? What are we talking? And it was like a 7-figure offer to bring human trafficking cases. And I was a little uncomfortable because it was a lot of religious ties to the group and everything. But I was looking at, I was like, well, what are we talking about with human trafficking? Trafficking, I don't care for it. Sounds really bad. And it was very legitimate cases. Like it was like containers, like shipping containers full of people from China, people crossing the Darien Gap from, South America. It was also like, it was women from the US being like snatched out of the US. And it was one of these things like, well, why are we in civil cases about this? Why aren't we like, this seemed
Mhm.
like something for like the feds, like this, people should be going to jail. And I guess now they are, potentially, allegedly, but
Yeah.
like, it's so strange that there's like
Yeah.
groups throwing millions at like
Right.
people. I don't think this group would care much at all, frankly. If they were like, this guy will actually, we hate him, but he'll actually, so like we'll fund him. Because I don't think they were fans. They might have been fans of the work, but they weren't fans of me. Um, and it was weird that it's become such an issue, and it seems like the government's not really doing what they need to do. That you get these weird, like, it's just weird. Much by
Yeah,
religious
it's
groups.
weird. Like where
Like,
it's like that it's bubbling up, that something like this would bubble up from a religious group that
yeah,
then like use it on the like from a civil perspective. I mean, I
they
guess it
got
all comes back to money, right? Like if, you know, money does like turbocharge a lot of these things, the idea that there would be some sort of settlement, and then but then you start to like peel back the layers and you start to see, oh my God, like this is criminal. And
yeah,
then it becomes
yeah.
impossible for the government to like turn a blind eye.
That was my thing. Like, how do you, in good conscience settle a human trafficking case? Like, okay, so you kidnap women, presumably, or just human beings against their will,
Right.
and now you want to check to get out of that. How, how do I do that? How do I accept that money? Because that's really what we're proposing here, like getting checks for the victims, but you're still free, and you've displayed a propensity for essentially engaging in slavery. Like,
Yeah.
how do we? What kind of blood money is that? And that's ultimately, I was like, listen, I don't what I don't understand. Why is this a civil case? Why are we shuffling around ones and zeros, and a couple $100,000 here and there for attempted slavery, or successful like human track? Like I did it didn't track for me as a civil case.
Eventually, like it doesn't make sense even strategically, because say there's a suit filed that becomes public record, and like if it gets enough media attention, which is what happened in this Alexander Brothers situation, then the government gets turned on to it. So ultimately, it will become potentially a criminal case anyway, right? Like it
Yeah.
just, once it becomes public,
It
once it's
also, I'm getting enough death threats these days
oh my
that I was
God.
like, what?
I said no.
It just doesn't seem like it seems like another level. Like it's a little bit higher. I don't know. It was a
Yeah.
lot.
That's not, yeah, that's also not, this is like sort of a tangent, but I met a couple of weeks ago with an energy healer, going
Ooh,
back to the whole like mental health, doing this work sort of a thing.
yeah,
And I've been doing well, but I had like one bad day where I was just like overwhelmed.
yeah,
And so I met with this energy healer, and she was like, there are some cases and some stories that you should like, you just will feel that they're not for you. She's like, if you feel it in your body, like if you feel that like there was one story that I can't share too much about yet, but related to the death of the second Boeing whistleblower. And I was just going into this like dark spiral, like hearing what could be the situation in that case. And she was like, maybe you just don't touch that one. And like with this case, like human trafficking, maybe like you don't touch that. And she was like, in my work, I she's like a very spiritual person, but also believes in like Western medicine and like
yeah.
psychiatry. But she's like, sometimes I will meet a person and they're so dark, I have to like pass them on to somebody else. To she said to the clergy, which I read as like an exorcist.
Oh my gosh.
So that was an interesting conversation. But she was like, yeah, I will know like this is too, I need to pass this along to someone who is like, handling those dark spirits. So whether you believe in that or not, I thought it was an interesting parallel to like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh no, I'm not, yeah, I do enough. I'm not going to touch that thing.
So for a long time, I never passed on a good. I passed on cases that I wasn't sure about many times, but if I believed in a case, no matter what, I wouldn't pass on it. And then I don't know, like 9 months ago, um, I went to the doctor and they're like, "Hey, your blood pressure is like 205 over 130." Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, "Oh yeah, got some stuff going on." They're like, "Yeah, you're gonna die. Like, you can't leave here now. Like, we hitting you." And I was like, "I'm not doing that, but like, maybe I should rethink some things." And one of those things was losing weight, but there's certain cases where it's just like, it, we have the bandwidth at this point. Do we? It, it's hard not to keep quoting, not to keep bringing up 50 Cent, but like, get rich or die trying. There's some aspect of that where you're like, you got to do that. You can't let, who's going to help these people if we don't? Like, that was the whole thing,
True.
is being this irrationally aggressive trailer park kid. I never said no because it was like, let's just go. Like, whatever happens, happens. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm at a crossroads. Like, do I slow down now? Do I bring in those hyper aggressive people who are younger? Like, I trying to figure out how to handle that at this point in my career.
I think there's a balance. And like,
Yeah, it feels cowardly. It does.
no,
Like, it's really hard to like to sit there and be like, okay, like,
yeah.
last time I brought a case against this particular company, I did have some scary experiences, and like, do I
Yeah.
back down? And I, I it's I don't want, but um,
But I
yeah, I
think
don't know.
it's like if you are in, you can do that, but you have to like muster the strength. And I feel like you do muster the strength, but you've done it so many times, and sometimes it's time to muster the strength, and sometimes it's like, well, maybe there are different ways of mustering the strength alongside other people, or like, I don't know, just ways to like take care of yourself, or at least that's what I'm telling myself, where I'm like, I can muster
Yeah,
the strength if I am taking care of myself and my body and my mind. And then
smart.
and also, especially if I know it's the truth, like with a lot of these situations, as you say, if you're, you feel strongly, you believe in something,
Yeah,
um, that always, no matter how like aggressive or nasty a lot of these corporations can be, at least we live in the United States where like we're like we're not being like whisked away in a bag in the middle of the night, you know? But like there's, we have protections and yeah, you're like, well, anything could happen. But I don't know. I just feel like
yeah,
the like, I don't know. It's hard.
it's hard. It's been a weird year. It's been a weird year.
Yeah.
Um, have you had, I mean, you're a growing rising star of content creators. Have you had are we talking about this? We can edit this out. Have you had some scary experiences? Do you want to share? You don't want to share? What do you feel?
Yeah, I can share.
Okay.
Nothing particularly scary yet. I mean, definitely some like creepy
Sure.
people are
Yeah.
surfacing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely have like talked to digital security people, and I want to make sure that no one knows my address. And those things are very important to me as I like, if I put myself out there more, which clearly I am doing. um,
Yes.
but yeah, I have tried to, I think your anxiety can definitely spiral if you go down some of those paths of like, oh, well, this person who's DMing me, who's, wants something from me, find me. And then what will happen when they find me? And, those are dark things that I don't love to entertain. At this point, I'm just like, I'm going to like, unless it is something that I have to deal with, right? If it's a problem I have to solve, I will solve that problem. But
Of
until
course.
then, I'm not going to let myself just like ruminate on end. Um, but yeah, you've had some experiences.
We had a couple weird ones. We had a person who was posing as someone I knew in high school to like and was able to get through the call center and the intake layer and had actually gotten a call with my assistant. Um, and it took my assistant a while because she was like, "Why do you want to talk to him? Like, what are we doing here?" And then she eventually said to me, she's like, "Hey, listen, this person is not who she says she is, and she knows more about you than I do. And I run your life, and I run your life for like years. So like, this is really scary. Like, you need to get serious about this." And the unresolved, just still going.
Um,
Like it's just like, how? Why? Like, I can't even imagine be like to be a woman online. It's just like, I don't know.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
what do you
especially,
do?
I mean, yeah, I think you have to, there are things that you can do preventatively, I think, and then you just can't let your anxiety overtake you.
I'm lucky in that like I don't have the anxiety about it. Like it's a little, but I'm also like not proactive enough because I don't have the anxiety. So people keep being
Right.
like, "Did you fix the thing?" And my take is like, "Well, I can't make her unlearn things about me. Like, what's that gonna like? She knows what she knows. I can't fix that. What am I gonna do? It's not like illegal to know things about me, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of just we did a few things. We have a mutual acquaintance, you and I, who guided me on some things. She is tremendously helpful, and
Yeah. She knows a lot about this stuff.
she, my God, so grateful.
Yeah.
I wonder if she wants to come on the channel some, maybe
She
not.
should. I think she totally should.
Yeah,
She
she
told
should.
me
I don't
she
know if she
wants to
wants to.
do TikTok too. No, she's potentially going to start TikToking.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to amplify her voice. No question there.